So Cosmos is held in 5 campuses. That is new, like UCLA is a new campus. It's recently just added UCLA to the list. Each campus will take anywhere about 200 students to 220 students. San Diego, I think, takes the maximum number of students because they have more clusters. They plan for about 20 students per cluster. And what you want to know is, you want to know that as you look at the clusters that you choose, you can only choose 2 clusters from the same campus. So you have to come up with 1 campus to decide on and apply to 2 clusters. Do not just leave it to 1 cluster saying, I don't like the second cluster, I don't want to apply. Your chances of getting in are doubled if you apply to 2 campuses or to 2 clusters instead of just 1. So choose a campus where, like, you could have a situation where there's 1 cluster in 1 campus that really you like to go to, might be a very popular one. Okay? Might not be a place where you might get in. So maybe going for a little less popular, but 2 programs which you kind of like, maybe are at a different campus, might be a thought process to think about. Yeah. See a lot of questions are already coming up. I'll answer in about 2 minutes. Okay, many questions. Now, it's important to really understand the goal of this program. Highly academic, research in universities. The people who are reading your application are college professors, not admissions committees. So it's not like somebody with a physics or a history major or an English major is reading your application, which typically happens for college applications. Cosmos is read by professors. So make sure your persona is very clear who you're writing for. Okay. This is their mission statement. Every time you write something in your academics about your activities, about your references, or about your personal essay, try not to send like love stories or poems or something very fancy. Stay within the limits of this program goal because that's what they want to hear. The dimensions of the application are very skewed as I read and talk to people in terms of your GPA. So your GPA of the last 2 years will matter a lot. Okay? More like 67, 70% of the application is just that. Your essays do matter, but not as much as your academics. And the choice, the important thing that's missing out over here, the key dimension of the application is the choice of the cluster. That is something which you have to work with a counselor or somebody who's done this before to figure out what's a good cluster for you, where your chances of getting in are higher compared to others. But that's just some of the key dimensions and recommendations. I was noticing yesterday, I was listening to one of the San Diego team's talk. Looks like the recommendation form has changed. It's become a lot easier, a lot simpler. So I'll read the recommendation letter and I'll have some more perspectives in the day the form opens, which is on the 10th. But seems like they've reduced it down to just a few check boxes. So I don't know if there's a complete need for a full-on brag sheet to be sent to your teachers or not, but that is something which I'll be investigating, and I can, if some of you want to reach out to me later, they can talk about that. Let's look at some of the questions that have come. JK said it's applying in 10th grade to 9th grade GPA matter. Yes, both. JK, if you're applying in 10th, then 9th and 8th both will matter. Shisha asked, my child is in 10th grade. How far back should I go for grades and ECs are concerned 2 years? What do you mean by clusters? Sorry, clusters are the cohorts. So if you're applying to Cosmos, you will apply for a particular topic. So there are like about 45, 50 topics you can apply to in Cosmos. So the topic you apply to, you can apply to 2 topics. So autonomous vehicles and maybe something else, depending upon what they've given. So clusters is the specific classroom that you're applying to. So San Diego has 13 classrooms. Davis has about 11 classrooms. UCLA just came up with 5 classrooms. So cohort by cluster, I mean the classroom that you're applying to. Could you please share your thoughts and importance regarding research publications, researching, research publications honestly do not matter as much in these programs because it will give you some perspective, but it's nothing to tout about. Like, definitely don't talk. If you've gone to a program like Cosmos before, that's great to talk a little bit about it. But really in the personal essay, they're expecting you to talk about something very personal about yourself. In the cluster, they're saying, why are you interested in this particular cluster, which means really a more forward-facing versus backward-facing. The bona fides, they will know from your activities list. So if you talk about some of the research you've done in the activities list, hopefully that Rajagopal explains, where you would put that in. But, that's the perspective, think in those terms. Okay, let's keep going. Acceptance rates are about 15% at San Diego and Davis. They tend to be higher at Irvine and Santa Cruz. It's my guess it's 20% plus because I know for a fact it's about 15% at San Diego and Davis. So UCLA is new this year. We don't know what will be the acceptance rate. I'm going to wager it'll be something like Davis and San Diego because UCLA, most of my students who are coming to me they're just not even talking about San Diego. They're talking about LA. So I think they'll be very competitive. So anybody who thinks that LA will not be competitive, so let me apply there, might not be a best strategy. What I don't like about LA is it's only got 5 clusters, which means you really are just left at that, to look through that for 2 clusters to like. And they're very academically focused. You can see it's a professor who's written the data sheet, which is going to turn off a lot of students, which also might be an opportunity for some other students to think through. As I said, the teaching faculty themselves read all the applications. So please be very careful in addressing those perspectives. Do not try to reach out to these teachers on your own. So I've had parents ask me, should I reach out and just introduce myself? Don't do that because that will not take you very far. But talking about some of the work that professor has done and what you're hoping to learn from that professor is a great way to discuss. But that could come in your clusters, in your why that particular cluster. Let's look at some more questions. Ritu says, my daughter attended UC Cosmos last year thanks to your webinar last year. Thank you so much, Ritu, for saying that. I appreciate it. Now, I've had students who come 2 years ago saying the same thing. There was an 8th grader, she got in and she sent me a note, which was great. Sumi is, I'm an 8th grader currently and going to 9th. Can I apply? Absolutely, Sumi, go for it. You should apply and apply not just this year, you should apply every year. So if you can only go to Cosmos, Sumi, once in 4 years. So make sure you apply again and again, maybe to the same cluster, show your growth in that cluster, but absolutely go, if you don't make it this year, try again next year. Make sure you incrementally talk about what you've changed in your application and write about that. Srisha says, hey, Som, don't raise hands, man. Just put your name put it in the text messages, and that's how I can just respond very quickly. Srisha says, we applied last year and did not get in. Can the essay story be different? Yes, you should, Srisha. So in fact, reach out to me if you need me to review your application for the essays. I can very quickly tell you what's working. In fact, we'll talk more about that as well. What you want to do is when you're applying this year, make sure you talk about if you're applying to the same cluster, which I do recommend as long as the child is still interested in it. Make sure you write about what has improved in your application this year, because you can be assured that person who's reading it will know that you applied last year, and they might just even look at that application. Okay. Amit says, can the letter be from someone other than a teacher in school, for example, from a medical profession? I'm not sure that's a good idea, Amit. In general, recommendations for Cosmos should come from teachers, because think of it the way they are thinking about this process. They're looking at students who are going to be focused and dedicated in the classroom, can add to intellectual capacity in the classroom, will help others in the project. So try to take it from an academic teacher. But if you don't have that, then maybe you can use somebody else outside. Arjun says, my child is in the 8th grade. We want to apply to the Cosmos program in 9th. What are some of the things we can start doing to make himself stand out? What? 8th grade, we want to apply. Okay. Don't know what that means. But what can he do to make himself stand out in application time in 9th grade? Well, keep working on the same cohort, show more changes. Come back, give me a call. I'll help you with some of those things. That's a very generic question. Prapti says, I'm in the 12th grade. I've already applied to colleges. No, you can't, Bacha. You can't apply to, oh, no. You can't apply to Cosmos. You're done. So, this is for only rising 12th graders, not 12th. Good luck with the applications. Arya's like, by Jan 10, should all the participants have essays ready? No. Arya, your question is, by Jan 10, should all the applicants have essays ready and all the recommendations ready? No. You just need to, the application opens that day. Yes, you could submit. There's no real advantage of applying early because they only start looking at the applications after 10th of February. So take your time, think about it, take a chill pill. What you should do is reach out to send out those recommendation requests very quickly. Okay, so fill out that part. So if your teacher is giving a recommendation, that comes in, because that date is very, very critical. When the teacher's recommendation comes in, needs to be by 10th of February. They will make no exceptions to that. So that is, I think, the most important part to make sure about this application, that the teacher gets it done, or teacher gets their act together in time for you. And you can see if they submitted or not. Okay. Is this in person or online? This is in person. Okay. Somebody says, I was born in 2019 Mountain View and lived in California till 2012. Can I apply? Well, if you're a California citizen, you can apply. If you're a resident of California, you can. But if you're not a resident, you can't. If you're in the ninth and applying for the first time, do you have to wait? If you are in the ninth grade and applying for the first time, do you have to wait till 10? No, you can apply now. You could be an eighth grader. If you could be a rising eighth grader in seventh, and you can apply. Now the chance of getting in are less, but you will build that muscle of thinking about an application. So there's a lot of value. Ragnesh says, is this open to California residents? Yes. How is the application process for current eighth graders? How is the application process for current eighth graders, since they're not in college, in high school yet? It is, because Arjun, because what you do is you have to provide sixth and seventh grade your artifacts, your transcripts, and it is applicable. If you look at their website, it's actually for rising eighth graders, which I was shocked myself. I thought it was rising ninth graders, but even for rising eighth graders, this is applicable. Atul says, do we need 2 letters of recommendation or just 1? 2. Okay. Nalini, how helpful is Cosmo attendance for college applications? Without doubt, absolutely phenomenal requirement. So in fact, even the UCs go on to say that you will have an edge if you want to Cosmos for our application. So which UCs never say. Now they're saying this, and because it's such a flagship program, it's something which will be recognized all over the country because everybody knows about it. Okay, I got to keep moving. Oh, GPA absolutely matters, especially in math and science courses. I did learn about this students needing financial need. They could come in with lower GPAs, but average expectation, like San Diego had expectation of 3.8. Now, does that mean you need to have 3.8? No. Apply, try. Okay? Even if you're 3.6, apply. If your child has a desire to go in there, let's apply. Okay, talk to me. Come by. We'll make things work for you. You have to apply for 2 activities. Okay, so you have to basically give them 2 activities. They say you can do one there's a limit of 2 activities, but no obligation to submit that many. It'll be a mistake if you only submitted 1 activity. Try to make your activities specifically around scholastic records. Do not write about piano and stuff, even though I talk about things over here about entrepreneurship communications. Try to get it back to STEM. I mean, if you can talk about 2 STEM activities that you've done, talk about those. Again, do not talk about them again in your cluster. Okay, so you only have 200 words in the cluster and 300 words in the personal essay. So you don't want to use your space very wisely, right? Note activities highlight academic capabilities or other qualities that speak to your fitness for this program. So for example, the fitness does not come from talking about taekwondo, doesn't come from talking about, some community work you've done. They're looking for really hard Cosmos, academic capabilities. So make sure we talk about that, okay? Let's talk about references. Now, you want to obviously submit your recommendations blind, which means you don't want to see them. Whatever the teacher sends is what she sends. He or she sends is what they send. So you want to waive your rights to the application to look at it. But you have to speak to, ideally get a math and a science teacher. In fact, till last year, I used to think that getting a liberal arts person maybe for something else might be okay. But the more I'm reading about it, I mean, guys, come on. They're asking, this Cosmos program is purely around math and science. It's STEM. So get all or both your references from STEM teachers. If you really can't, then maybe have a teacher talk about classroom level work. This is where the brag sheet becomes very important. So I've given some examples of, what could come in your reference focus. Maybe you could talk about this in your own brag sheet. If you send a brag sheet to your teacher, you put together a document saying, I would like for you to give me a recommendation and maybe include some of these things about me. They might use that. Okay? So that's what we call as the brag sheet. There's some more questions that have come. Judy asked, need some more clarification. I'm no longer a California resident, but was a resident for 3 years from. No, you can't apply. Can I apply as a current 8th grader? Yes, you can. Shubharangam Malavia. I studied my 9th and 10th in India, and now I'm in California. If you're a California resident, then you can apply. How will my grades be calculated for GPA? There is a self-reporting framework in which you can give your self-reporting based on your grades in India, and provide in the transcript. They can do a calculation for you. Arya asked, can we talk about Science Olympia and HOSA activities? Yes, absolutely. Talk about that, Arya, in your activities. Don't talk about that in the cluster explanation, but put in the activities. Okay. Som asked, I'm in the 7th grade going to 8th. Can I apply? Yes, Som, you can apply. There is I think they started just this year. So look at the application. They do allow for that. How do I apply as a current 8th grader? Asking if there are any websites. Yes, you can apply. Just go and apply. You'll be fine. If the extracurricular activities are done, are sparse and had minimal exposure to STEM, anything to strategy. Ravi asks, if extracurricular activities, look, your extracurricular activities will be sparse simply because you're too young. You're not going to be able to put together like talk about maybe some clubs you work with, maybe some project you've done in the class. And that could be, you could count it creatively towards your extracurriculars, but, call me, we can look at what that would be. Sanvi asked, what would a teacher in biomedical science course be a good? Yes, good. Question was, would a teacher in a biomedical science course be a good person to ask for a recommendation, depending upon the cluster you're applying to? Okay? Now, try to make your recommendations also by teachers who are in similar fields. Not always ideal. I mean, if you can't, then that's fine. As long as they're STEM teachers, that's good enough. I will also say this thing that if you don't have a good relationship with the science teacher, or you don't think they're going to give you a good recommendation, it's better to go to a history teacher who will give you a better recommendation. Okay. So, kind of think diabolically of the problem. Anjali, just ask your questions in the text because that's where I'm answering. I'm not answering questions through hand raises. Okay. How long are the summer programs? This is for 4 weeks. Cosmos asks for current year. Okay, I'm going to take questions at the end, guys. There are too many questions right now coming at me. Okay, I'll come back. Okay, to the questions. Okay, we talked about the references. The clusters are linked over here in this presentation, which I'll send to you all. You'll be able to click on the links and go into the clusters. The clusters for San Diego are much more. Santa Cruz has stopped some of these this year, clusters. LA has come up with these 6 clusters this year. They're all very, very technical. Don't get scared of them, okay? Look at them in details. In fact, the ones which look scarier are the ones you want to go for. Obviously, you have to be able to meet the prerequisites, which is a key part of your application, which is, for example, I have this spreadsheet for all the clusters. I write down all the prerequisites right here. So as my students come to me and say, I'm applying to this one, and they're like, well, I have done calculus I was good at pre-calc. I'm like, no, you can't apply to calculus, okay? If it says high school level biology, they mean it. They don't mean what you did in a Coursera course outside. They mean it high school level. Unless that course can actually say it's high school level, don't just go for it, okay? There is something about preferred prerequisites, and then there's one more overlap as well. So make sure you are really in line with their expectations.